Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to another Preseason 8 League of Legends Champion Guide. Today I'll be covering mid lane Lux, the Lady of Luminosity.
Let's light it up!
Alright, so let's hop right into this guide by looking at Lux's pros and her cons. So off the top, Lux has two abilities that give her vision. This would be her E ability and her ultimate. Now of course she's not going to use her ultimate just for vision, she'll usually use her E for that, but she is able to check brushes and make sure there's no enemies in there with this ability. She's then a very bursty mid laner, and her ultimate has a very long range as well. This means she can just roam partway up or down river and help her teammates with a long range ultimate. She has some pretty strong poke damage since her abilities do have a pretty long range and great team utility as well. This will come from both her crowd control and her shielding ability, which is great at making people survive things like Karthus' ultimate. Now Lux, however, is a very skill shot dependent champion. If you're not landing the root from your Q ability, it's going to be very hard for you to combo on top of the enemy champion. You are also a very squishy champion with no built-in escape, so positioning is very important. Then finally, Lux does have some pretty long cooldowns as well, so until you get some cooldown reduction and some points in your abilities, this may be a pretty big issue for you. For your runes, you want to go for Sorcery and Inspiration, grabbing Arcane Comet as your keystone. This will give Lux some really nice added damage and make your poke damage even stronger. So first you'll want to go for the ultimate hat, so whenever you use your ultimate, the cooldown will be reduced. This will make Lux have a really low cooldown ultimate, especially if she gets kills or assists with it, and people will even use this on the minion waves early on to get this lowered as much as possible. Then to increase her harassment as much as possible, you want to go for Absolute Focus and Scorch. This will make you do more damage when you are above 70% health, and your abilities will also burn the target. Then in the inspiration side, we want to go for Magical Footwear so you get free boots at 10 minutes, and then Cosmic Insight to get more cooldown reduction. For your summoner spells, you have a lot of good options, but you want to make sure you pick up Flash. It's great when used as an escape since you are a very immobile champion, or you can use it as an extra way to engage onto the enemy. If you then want an offensive summoner spell, then you can always go for Ignite as well. Take this if you're looking to add some nice extra kill pressure in the mid lane, or of course if you are against healing abusing champions like Soraka or Swain. Now there is, however, a lot of great defensive options as well. Heal is my favorite one because it can be used to save your life or an ally's as well, and you can also use it for that extra movement speed to get that burst that you do need to either engage or escape. Now Barrier is also a solid option as well against champions who do burst damage, and Exhaust is great to help survive all-ins from assassins. Finally, you can always take Cleanse as well against champions with really solid crowd control like Twisted Fate. Your passive ability is Illumination, which adds some nice extra damage onto a target after you follow an ability. Lux's offensive abilities mark all affected enemies with light energy for 6 seconds. Her basic attacks and final spark consume the mark, dealing between 20 and 190 based on level plus 20% AP bonus magic damage. So this passive is really solid at last hitting and harassing the enemy champion because as long as you can land an offensive ability and auto attack them, you will do an extra portion of damage. That means you can always lower minions with your E ability, get this on them, and then auto attack them to finish them off and easily last hit. Of course, this is also great in harassment. Now, since this also works with your final spark, you can also use this to proc the damage in your combo. One very popular combo is using your Q ability to snare the target, using your ultimate to do a bunch of damage and also proc your passive, and then using your E ability and an auto attack to do more damage. I'll be covering that more in depth on the combo page, however. Your Q ability is Light Binding, which is your crowd controlling ability that will root your targets for 2 seconds. When activated, Lux releases a sphere of light in a line that deals magic damage to the first 2 enemies hit and roots them for 2 seconds. So this is a really nice part of Lux's kit because of course it is a rooting ability and will allow you to pull off your combos rather easily. It also has a 1175 range, so you can use this from a very long way away. Now keep in mind this does root the first 2 enemies hit, so you can always use it on a minion in front of an enemy champion, and it will still root the enemy champion behind them as long as there's no minion in between them. Some people forget this, especially in the lower elos, so use that to your advantage. Now this does also have a 70% AP ratio, so you can also use it to last hit, but it's generally best used as a way to root the enemy so you can use your combo. Your W ability is Prismatic Barrier, which is your shielding ability that gives both yourself and your teammates a bunch of extra survivability. When activated, Lux launches her wand in the target direction, which then returns to her after reaching maximum range. Allied champions in its path are shielded for 3 seconds, which stacks on subsequent applications. If Lux shields at least one other ally on the outgoing path, the returning wand will grant twice as much shield. So this here is a pretty decent ability because it does have the chance to shield your entire team as long as they are in the path of the shield. The Empowered Shield is actually pretty strong, and if you can get it on multiple allies, it will give them a lot of survivability, and it can save your entire team from something like a Karthus' ultimate. Now, it of course does no damage, however, so you're not really going to put a bunch of points into it, but it is still great to throw out and give your team a really nice shield. Your E ability is Lucent Singularity, which is your main source of damage and is great at last hitting and also poking the enemy. When activated, Lux sends an anomaly of twisted light to the target area, slowing nearby enemies and granting sight of the area around it for up to 5 seconds. At the end of the duration, or if Lucent Singularity is activated again, the Singularity detonates, dealing magic damage to all enemies in the area. So this of course is a really strong ability because it does have a scaling slow duration and does a lot of damage in an AoE. With the 1000 range this ability has, you can also safely last hit the minions and also poke the enemy champion at the same time. It's also got a scaling slow duration of up to 45%, so it's also great to hold people in an area as well. Don't forget, this is also great because it does show people in an area, so make sure you use it to check brushes, but usually you'll want to use this to last hit minions as much as you can and also poke the enemy. And that brings us to Lux's ultimate Final Spark, which does some damage in a line at a very long range. When activated, after gathering energy for 1 second, Lux fires a giant laser in a line that deals magic damage to all enemies hit, briefly revealing them as well as the surrounding area. If Final Spark kills at least one enemy champion, a percentage of its remaining cooldown is refunded. So this is a very strong ultimate because at max rank it only has a 50-second cooldown and the range is 3,340. That means you can roam just part way up or down the river and still influence a fight with this ultimate since it has a very long range. If you have rank 3 in this ability, you can snipe off a target, 50% of it will be refunded, and without cooldown reduction, this is only going to have a 25-second cooldown if this is the case. This does also have a really high base damage with 75% AP ratio, so it's going to do a lot of damage. Use it to burst down the enemy and try to snipe off kills so you get the cooldown refunded. Since you do also have Ultimate Hat, people will use this on the minion waves early on in the game to reduce the cooldown of this ability as much as possible. For your skill order, you first want to put a point into your ultimate whenever you can at 6, 11, and 16. Then, since it's really strong at poking the enemy champion and last hitting, you want to max your E ability first. Next, since it also has some pretty decent damage and the cooldown goes down every time you put a point in the ability, you'll want to max your Q ability second. Now that of course means you want to save your W ability for last because it is just a shielding ability, it doesn't actually do any damage, but you will want to take a point in it early on at level 4 so you can actually survive things like Ignite or just all-ins from enemy champions. For your all-in combo, you first want to root the target with your Q ability and drop your E underneath them. You'll then want to use your ultimate to do a big chunk of damage and proc your passive, and then explode your E ability and use your auto attack to proc your passive again. This will do damage from all 3 of your abilities and also get your passive off twice. Against squishy targets, as long as you have some decent items, you should be able to delete them instantly. Farming is the most important part of your lane phase because you'll need your core items to be able to 100 to 0 the enemy carries. Try not to push the wave by last hitting with your auto attacks, but use your spells if you need to stop the wave from hitting your tower. Next, you'll need to try to harass the enemy out of lane, or better yet, kill them. Make sure you're doing this in between your last hits. Land your spells on the enemy and then auto-attack them to proc your Illumination. Lux is also a pretty decent roamer, so when you have your Final Spark available, you should be looking for low health enemies. Go into the river and try to snipe kills either in the top or bottom lane. Before a full-out teamfight starts, you'll want to try to poke down the enemy with your Lucent Singularity so they're on low health. You'll then want to try to hit as many targets as possible with your Final Spark unless you can blow up a high kill priority target. If you do manage to get a kill with it, you may be able to use it twice in a long drawn out team fight. If you have something like a Galio or a Mumu on your team, try to combo it on top of their own ultimate. You'll then want to use your Prismatic Barrier to help your team survive. It's really strong against AoE damage like a Karthus ultimate or a Vladimir ultimate and can really increase your survivability. Then finally, try to snare the enemy with your light binding so you can easily combo on top of it, but it's also great to use as a peel. Now let's look at a couple of your hard matchups, and first up is Ahri. Now Ahri is going to be pretty hard for you because she has a lot of mobility when she has her ultimate, and she can easily dodge your light binding. As long as she can do that, she'll use the other charges of her ultimate to jump on top of you and delete you with the rest of her kit. Therefore, you'll want to be pretty aggressive until level 6, but when she is level 6, you may want to consider holding onto your Q in case she ultimates on top of you. For the next hard matchup, I've got Fizz. Yet again, he'll be a champion you want to bully until level 6, but when he is level 6, he's going to have a lot of kill pressure on you if he lands his ultimate. Therefore, if you know he has his ultimate available, play much more defensively and hold on to your Q. You may want to consider getting an early Banshee's Veil against him because it isn't the easiest for him to take off of you unless he's jumping on top of you, and his ultimate will be much less effective. Next up, I have Morgana. Now, she's not a champion that has a ton of kill pressure on you, however, you're not really going to be able to kill her. Her black shield is going to give her a ton of survivability, and she'll be able to easily get any of the farms she needs with her W. Now, the reason this is going to be such an issue for you is she is a very strong team fighter with her ultimate, and if she's getting a lot of farm, she's going to be very devastating in those team fights. Try to bait out her black shield, and when it is down, it's time to combo. And for the last hard matchup, I've got Vel'Koz. Vel'Koz will be pretty annoying for you because you don't have a ton of mobility, and he'll be able to land his skill shots pretty easily. As long as he can consistently land these, you will be bullied out of the lane phase, and he of course can also combo you rather easily because you don't have a lot of health. Against him, just focus on getting as much farm as possible, and as soon as you land a Q ability, it'll be time for you to combo because he is also very squishy. Now let's finish this off with your item build, and in a normal start, you want to go for a Doran's Ring, health potions, and a warding totem, and if you're in a really easy matchup, you can always go for the Dark Seal, refillable potion, and a warding totem. This is a much greedier start, but if you feel like the lane's going to be really easy for you and you can get some kills, then you may as well go for that start. For your core build, you have the Morellonomicon, Sorc Shoes, and a Luden's Echo. This will give you 20% CDR off the top, some nice magic penetration and ability power, and of course that Grievous Wounds and movement speed from the Luden's Echo. You'll be a very bursty champion with this core build, and you'll have the movement speed to roam just a little bit quicker, and the Grievous Wounds against any champions that do have healing. For your item pool, if you started with a Dark Seal, or if you are getting a bunch of kills, you could always go for the Magi's. This is a stacking item that is pretty greedy to go for, but if you're not really dying, it's a very effective item for the price that it costs. If you then want a defensive item, you can either go for the Zhonya's or a Banshee's Veil. The Zhonya's is a really solid defensive option against assassins since you can use the stasis to survive, and the Banshee's Veil is really solid against AP assassins, so you do have that spell shield that will block a spell. Of course, as previously mentioned, it is really effective against champions that can't easily break it like a Fizz. Now if you're then going for a hardcore high AP build, you could always go for the Rabadon's Death Cap. If you want as much ability power as possible, you will need to pick this up, and it's a great item to carry the game. Then, if you're looking for some magic penetration, especially in the later stages of the game, you could always go for the Void Staff. The tankier champions on the enemy team, as long as there are some, will eventually have some magic resist, and this is a really solid way to get through a big chunk of it. Against those really tanky teams that have a high health pool, you could always go for the Liandry's. This will make you do a burn based on their health and also give you a little bit more magic penetration, and will do a really nice chunk of damage to those tankier champions. Then finally, if you're going for all-out burst, you could always go for a Lichbane. This will make your next basic attack following an ability do some extra damage. Now it's not really necessary on Lux because she already does a big chunk of burst, but if you're looking for a really high amount of burst, you can always go for that item. For my example full build, however, I take that core build, then get the Zhonya's, Void Staff, and a Rabadon's. You'll have a crazy amount of ability power to carry the game and delete squishies, and a really nice defensive from that Zhonya's. And that's all I've got for mid-Lux in Season 8. If you guys enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and visit my video description below. I have a link to all my social medias, and I do also have a Discord server, so that's one you should definitely check out. But other than that, thank you guys a ton for watching, I really do appreciate it, so take it easy, have a good day, and peace.